Ladies and gentlemen, gather around the rant table because today I am officially climbing aboard. I'm tired of the overhyped trad publishing hype train express. Okay, you know the one. The train that rolls into town loaded with gorgeous covers, special editions, book of the month selections, social media buzz, dark academia aesthetics, mysterious magic systems, enough marketing to make you think you found the next fantasy dark academia masterpiece. Then you crack open the book, and halfway through you're sitting there wondering if somebody accidentally forgot to include the world building. You're asking questions, lots of questions. Questions the author never seems interested in answering. Questions that somehow become more confusing the further you read. Questions that are still sitting in your brain after the final page. And today, we're going to talk about the book that had all the ingredients to be something super special. But it ended up feeling like a rough draft of a bigger story that just never, arrived at the damn station. We're talking Dark Academia, Purgatory Magical School, 6 POV characters, and we're talking enough plot holes to drive the Hogwarts Express through. Alright, this is the episode of the Rant Table. Welcome to Disappointment, and welcome to my review of Immortal Consequences. You know what it is. All I gotta say is... Alright, welcome back to the Rant Table. Pull up a chair because we have some things to discuss about Immortal Consequences by Ivy Marie. Alright, beautiful book, sprayed edges. The premise sounds incredible on paper. 6 students are dead, not mostly dead, not kinda dead, actually dead. They now reside at Blackwood Academy, a mysterious magical school located in Purgatory. Every decade, students compete in something called the Decennial. The winners receive 1 of 3 prizes. You can become an ascended teacher or cross over to the mysterious other side. And immediately, my first thought was, that's it. Those are the rewards? Are you serious? That's all the rewards? We're fighting for afterlife futures, and those are the grand prizes? What? For something that's supposed to be the centerpiece of the entire novel, the rewards never felt partially exciting or meaningful. This book just didn't land for me. And I really want to talk about the elephant in the room, which is Blackwood Academy, okay? Because holy hell, does this place need some backstory? Who created the Blackwood Academy? Why does Blackwood Academy exist? Why is it in Purgatory? How long has it been there? Who runs it? What purpose does it actually serve? Why are dead kids attending classes for centuries upon centuries? Why does the afterlife need homework? Why does the afterlife need magical education? Why is everyone acting like magical boarding school attendants completely normal? The author drops readers directly into the setting and basically says, figure it out, no prequel, no prologue, no historical explanation, no foundational lore, nothing. And that's a huge issue because Blackwood Academy should be the most fascinating aspect of the story. Instead, it becomes this giant question mark. The entire novel feels like the readers walked into season 3 of a television show without watching seasons 1 and 2. You're constantly trying to catch up and ask yourself, what the hell's going on? I just believe that this book could have benefited from an entire prequel series. I'm serious, a whole series. Give me the origins of Blackwood Academy. Give me the creation of Purgatory. Give me the rules of the afterlife. Give me the history of the Ascended students. Give me the origins of the Decennial. Give me literally anything. Because the world building here feels unfinished and it's not fleshed out enough. The ideas are there, the concepts are there, the atmosphere, the execution is not there. Alright? And that's frustrating because Dark Academia lives and dies on world building. If you're asking me to spend 450 some pages inside a magical academy, I need to understand why this school exists. I need the setting to feel real. I need to be able to connect to these 6 POVs emotionally. Instead, Blackwood feels like an aesthetic more than a location. It's vibes, not substance, alright? And I also want to talk about the 6 POV structure, because this is where things really got confusing, messy, and rough. The book immediately introduces 6 different perspectives. 6. Not 2, not 3, 6. And the way the book just throws you into the first POV is confusing as hell. We're expecting immediately to care about all of them. The problem is that we barely understand the world before we're bouncing between perspectives, It creates a lot of confusion, especially when you're trying to understand a magic system, a competition, and the rules of the afterlife simultaneously. Why do you need magic in the afterlife? And instead of deepening the story, the POV shifts really fragmented because one chapter is like a couple pages, then it goes to another POV, which is a couple of pages. Like the chapters are real short. I kept waiting for these characters to become fully realized. I kept waiting for their histories to matter. I kept waiting for revelations about their deaths, and the moments just never arrived. And it's just it became a serious major issue. The characters are dead. Their deaths shouldn't matter. They should add some depth to the story. Their unfinished business should matter. Their past lives should matter. But we don't get enough information. We're given hints, small allusions, tiny breadcrumbs, but that's about it. Like, as a reader, I want emotional depth. I want tragedy. I want heartbreak. I wanted to understand why these 6 significant people, ended up at Blackwood Academy. Instead, most of the novel is I'm wondering why they were even chosen POVs at all, or chosen at all to be in the decennial, And can somebody please explain to me why the afterlife needs a complicated magical education system, like for centuries? Because the book sure doesn't. The magic exists, people use it, people talk about it, the academy teaches it, but the mechanics remain frustratingly vague. And here's the thing, mystery is fine, confusion is not. Like, and even with the headmaster Silas and what he did to actually, corrupt Blackwood, there's no backstory on who got the Blackwood before that. Like, those are not the same thing. It's crazy that, a mystery, the mystery of Blackwood is not explained, nothing is explained. And a mystery in this kind of book would invite readers to learn more and want to read further in the story. But instead, the confusion leaves readers scratching their heads. The magic system constantly landed, like, in the second category for me. I'm sitting there, like, scratching my head at all these questions. And I really tried hard not to make this comparison, especially in the end of the book when, they figure stuff out, and then all of a sudden, page 439 is mentioned, and all I'm thinking in my mind is Snape, turn to page 300 or 493, or in that category, because the book practically forces me to talk about this. Amelia is sneaking into restricted areas looking for shadow magic. Sounds familiar. The Decentennial competition, very familiar. The Decentennial Ball, extremely familiar. By the time we reached the ball sequence and then the 439 thing at the page of the book, I couldn't stop thinking about the Yule Ball. I couldn't stop thinking of the first, Harry Potter book, or no, actually the third. Sorry, when Snape tells Hermione to turn to page 394. Like, he literally, the author takes the page numbers and turns them around. The parallels between Harry Potter and this book become really hard to ignore. Now, every magical school story will inevitably draw comparisons to Harry Potter. It really seems like it's unavoidable. But there were moments where this felt less inspired by those books and more like it was echoing them from fan fiction from Wattpad, because the author has a book from Wattpad. And one thing I will compliment, though, the pacing is quick, very quick. The pages move, the chapters move, the story does keep moving. The problem, it often feels like it's sprinting in place, okay? Events happen, scenes happen, conversations happen, but the story doesn't feel like it's making meaningful progress. The book genuinely reads like a boring bridge novel, sort of. It reads like a bridge novel that's boring but fast-pacing, if that makes sense, with, like, a little bit of explanation to keep you just interested, but it's like the setup between the setup and the actual story. In a first book that's in a duology, that is a dangerous place to be. Some of the dialogue works, some of it doesn't. A lot of it feels really underdeveloped. Certain emotional moments should hit harder than they do. Certain relationships should feel richer than they do. And unfortunately, some interactions come across as awkward or cringeworthy, especially when it comes to August and Ren. Their dynamic really never fully clicked for me because we aren't really giving much of a backstory on that, because there's a prequel about those two, but apparently that was released after this book came out. And it's actually, no, it's not even released yet, matter of fact. It's still on Amazon. It's not going to be released till next year. And I want to talk about the ending, because, like, that ending was just seriously anticlimactic. After all the build-up, all the mysteries, all the questions, the payoff just wasn't there. And then the cliffhanger arrives, and instead of leaving me shocked, it left me confused again, like, which unfortunately became a recurring theme throughout the novel, and here's where things get interesting, because despite everything I just said, I didn't DNF it, and honestly, I came close multiple times. There were moments where I was convinced I was about to put this book down, then the writing would pull me back in, and every single time, that's the weird thing about this novel. The prose is competent, the writing itself is good, the author absolutely has talent, The characters aren't insufferable. There are intriguing ideas, and this book could have seriously benefited from a very, very talented developmental editor because of how many plot holes there are. There are moments of genuine promise. There are intriguing ideas. The characters are, like I said before, aren't insufferable, and somehow that's enough to keep the pages turning, even when the story is really frustrating you. It frustrated me multiple times. And if you're planning to read this book, go in completely blind. Don't go into it with any kind of expectations. Don't go into it with reviews that you've read. Don't go into expecting the next great dark academia masterpiece. Do not go in expecting every mystery to make sense. Do not go in expecting extensive world building, and read it slowly, seriously, 50 pages at a time, then take a break. Your brain will thank you. The 6 POV structure and the sheer amount of unexplained information can become exhausting if you try to binge it. And at the end of the day, Immortal Consequences, it feels like a novel with great ideas and incomplete execution. The atmosphere works with the writing, the concept, the world building doesn't, the explanations don't, the character development isn't deep enough, the magic system remains frustratingly vague, and the ending doesn't deliver the payoff the story desperately needed. This feels like less like a complete first installment and more like a giant setup for book 2. The good news is I'm going to read the sequel absolutely, because somehow, despite all my complaints, I still kind of want answers. I still want explanations. I still want to know if all these loose ends come together. So when Ruinous Ends arrives in July, I'll be there, hopefully with fewer questions, hopefully with fewer plot holes, and hopefully with a story that finally delivers on the potential that Immortal Consequences only hints at. For me, I'm really going to give this book like a 2.5-star read. Maybe 3 stars on a really generous day. Not because the writing is bad, because it isn't, but because the story never fully earns the massive amount of confusion it asks readers to endure. And with that being said, too, I really I don't know what book 2 is gonna get into, because like the author, if I feel like she wrote herself into a corner with so many plot holes, with so much unexplained, that I don't know what you would even address in book 2. You would almost have to write a serious prequel about Blackwood Academy and its origins for the reader to fully understand this book in its entirety, because of how vague and how it just drops the reader right into the world and doesn't, especially with 6 POV characters, man. It's crazy that the author did not release a POV, or not a POV, but a prequel for the 6 POVs plus Blackwood plus a dark academia novel. It's crazy. But anyway, that's my final review for Immortal Consequences. I can't believe this is a book of the month, and it's getting annoying, but I got to deal with it. It was a fast-paced read, but that's going to do it today for today's trip to the rant table. If you read Immortal Consequences, let me know what you thought, okay? Did the world building work for you? Did the mysteries pay off? Or were you sitting there asking the same questions I was, Until next time, keep reading, keep ranting, and remember, a dark academia setting can survive flawed characters, it can survive slow pacing, it can even survive a confusing magic system, but it can't survive a world that never explains why it's there in the first place. All right? Rock on, everybody. It's the Read It Rant podcast. Give me a follow, repost, and you know what it is, guys. Read It and Rant is out.